everyone. Welcome to Californians Anonymous. This is N.R. Burney podcasting from the San Francisco Bay Area.
And this is N.R. Snowden podcasting from Denver, Colorado.
How's Colorado right now?
Not too bad. Well, we had a really nice cold snap. Dumped a lot of blizzard snow on us from last night. That was pretty interesting. Driving around, the streets are entirely white, even with all the cars coming across them. But, of course, it's Colorado, so most of it's already frickin' melted by now.
Yeah, that's the great thing about Denver is that it may snow in the morning, but by mid-afternoon, it looks as if it hadn't snowed at all, right? Like, it's just pretty clear, at least on some days during the year, where the sun would just melt away all the snow. So that's great.
Well, it's a nice thing if you don't like the snow. Me personally, I love it. So it's always disappointing when it doesn't stick around for a while.
Well, you're the kind of guy who would rather live in Barrows, Alaska than in sunny Miami.
Well, that's true. Yes,
Yeah,
that's absolutely true.
I mean, that's very, very cool. I mean, I'm not sure if I would ever live in Miami. That's not the kind of city I'm fairly used to. It sounds like an extreme version of Santa Monica Beach or something.
I mean, if we're talking about the actual,
insecure.
yeah, if we're talking about the actual cities themselves, I don't think I'd want to live in Barrows. But just in terms of the weather and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I'm definitely a snowy tundra kind of person more than I am a sunny beach guy. So
you're a polar bear.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to our first topic of our podcast. So apparently, Dianne Feinstein, our revered senator, well, my revered senator for right now, your former revered senator of California, Dianne Feinstein, was confronted by a group of kids who were saying to her if she would support the Green New Deal. And they basically went up to her, expressed their concerns over climate change and if she would support the Green New Deal. And Dianne Feinstein being Dianne Feinstein, sometimes I don't 100% agree with her, as I do with most politicians. She was fairly right, I think, here when she lectured the group of kids, saying that some of the things that you guys are saying are pretty unrealistic.
Well, that would be perfectly fine if that's what she said. I do agree with the basic tenets that the kids came in and they were advocating for the Green New Deal that Ocasio-Cortez floated around. Now, like we've talked about before, that thing is just bullshit. I mean, that whole plan is utter nonsense. So
right. She's
She's kind of right to tell the kids that you can't really do that. What everybody's getting on Feinstein about is how she handled it.
The lecturing part.
Not even the lecturing part?
She was just condescending.
Oh, if it was only condescending. The thing of it is that the quotes, the exact direct quotes, are things that when I first heard them, I had to look this up and double check and get other sources to confirm it, because I figured there's no possible way she actually said this shit. She is quoted as, when she's talking to the kids, she's basically throwing out crap like, you didn't vote for me. And that, well, you're young kids, I know better than you. Literally, she said, I've gotten elected. I just ran. I was elected by almost 1 million vote plurality, and I know what I'm doing. So, maybe people should listen a little bit.
She's not wrong there. These children didn't vote for her. I mean, of
well,
course
you're
she
right,
does sound
and she actually says that. When she
conceited.
confronted one girl, and the girl said that she was 16 years old, Dianne Feinstein stated, quote, well, you didn't vote for me then.
I mean, she's a senior senator, and of course, it's really the tone that's pretty much at discussion over the mainstream media right now. How the way that she handled it, But at the same time, I think she's right in at least in what she said, but in how she said it, that is moot. It is debatable if she executed her arguments very well, or if she basically basically insulted the kids right there. Like, you're not even old enough to vote. But I think that's how I would react in some regard if I were a senator. Like, you're too young to know these things. Like, how the hell are you confronting me about this? It seems to me it seems as if like these kids were brought forth to Feinstein by their parents, and their parents just like force fed them all this stuff about the Green New Deal and climate change and whatnot. Although as much as I do agree with the concerns of climate change, I do wholeheartedly agree that humans do have an effect on climate change. I find that these kids, I mean, sure, they're trying to exercise their freedom of speech. They want to assemble. Okay, that's fine. But at the same time, like, these are kids. Like, they're not going to know climate change. Like, they won't be able to, like, they don't know that much about the world. Right? Like, they're only, 10, 12?
It was a range of kids.
Well, there was
younger kids.
Right?
There was a 16-year-old in the group.
Right. And, I think maybe Feinstein was having a bad day that day.
That could certainly be. I mean, my biggest thing is that I just look for consistency, which is why I'm glad that she's being slaughtered in the media over this. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, can you imagine if Trump talked to kids in this exact same way? He'd be crucified in the media because of course he would
absolutely.
Be. So I'm just glad that there's some consistency and no hypocrisy over this. She didn't say anything incorrect. You're right. I mean, her actual points are on the mark. Mm-hmm. But how she handled it, I mean, come on. Part of your job as a politician is to try to make your statements with some modicum of tact.
I think
she's presenting herself as an old man telling the kids to get off her damn lawn.
Oh yeah, she's a ancient relic right now. She is part of the old guard of the Democratic Party, and she just seems to be so tired. I think she really needs to retire.
Yeah, she does.
I mean, Barbara Boxer has already retired. So does Feinstein. She needs to do that. She needs to go into the woods and not come back. Although I do respect some of her opinions, I don't think she is at her peak in terms of being a politician.
Well, she's 85 years old. I mean, for God's sakes, at this point, she's approaching Strom Thurmond territory.
Oh yeah. I mean, she is basically like RBG right now. She's like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think she's just 5 years away from being pushed on a wheelchair. So it's Feinstein. She's right about she's right about the stuff she said, but I think it was funny that she just lectured these kids. Like, I would do the same thing in some regard. So like guys, it's great that you're concerned about climate change, but I'm not sure if I want to take advice from a 10-year-old.
Well, obviously, she's not going to take advice from a 10-year-old. I'm just thinking that when you've got kids in there who are actually interested enough in, civil discourse to show up to a senator's office like this, it could have been nice if she took a step back and made this more of like a teaching moment. I don't know, put it into a context where it's a thought experiment for them. Gave them an assignment on how would you pay for this, and point out that it's not as simple as just saying we have the money, because we don't. That's not how it works.
Right. Well, I think let's maybe look back, maybe look at from the perspective of Feinstein, who had to confront so many of her some of the left, right, when it came to certain policies. I think she's been she's been confronted by numerous groups. I think lately, because that she has at times been caught saying that she would work with Trump, she's been called out and been confronted with groups who basically try to berate her. Like, why would you like work with Trump or like this? Like I think she's just so sick and tired of being confronted by groups that really have no idea what they're saying. And so I think she may not have had the right rhetoric in how she spoke with the children, but I think she's just sick and tired of being confronted by groups, young people basically, who just seem to be well intentioned but don't know what they're saying.
Fair enough, but that's the job, you know?
Yeah,
I don't feel a lot of sympathy for her being confronted by groups when her entire job description is being a servant of the electorate. Right. So interacting with those groups is half of what she's supposed to be doing.
Right.
You know, and again, if you don't like that, if you're tired of it, if you're sick of it, and you can't handle it, then maybe go do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's going to be another, 6 years? She just got reelected. So it's going to be by 2024.
Which that'll put her at 91 years old. So if she lives that long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, she'll, if she lives that long, and we may need to replace some of her limbs because she's just so old. So she'll be Diane Frankenstein. That was a terrible joke. Someone just shoot me. Someone shoot me in the head right now.
Oh, I like it because what can I say? I am a huge fan of dad jokes. I don't know if that quite qualifies as dad jokes, but I'm laying it out on the table what my quality as standards of humor is.
That was a dad joke right there. But yeah, yeah. So Dianne Feinstein, one of the last great senators, I guess, of California. I don't know. So yeah, so let's move on to something that I guess that you brought up in our discussions over text, which is ballot harvesting.
Yeah, this one gets a little into the weeds of technicalities and whatnot.
Yeah,
so I'll try to keep it simple and straightforward without being complicated. Ballot harvesting is basically the practice of you've got organized workers or volunteers. They go out and they collect absentee ballots from voters, and they drop them off at a polling place or an election office. That's usually something that you would do on like the day of the election. Basically, You're trying to find voters who have received their ballots in the mail, and you can confirm that they haven't voted yet. Mm-hmm. And they're unlikely to vote unless you send somebody out there to get the ballot. Now, at first, that seems like that's a fair enough idea, right? In theory.
Right.
The problem is that this starts to get into, like I said, I'll avoid getting into the weeds on this, but there's a lot of concerns regarding what these volunteers who go and pick up the ballots are actually doing. It's not just them picking up the ballot. More often than not, in these kind of circumstances, they're also suggesting who you would vote for and helping to fill out the ballot in order to collect them, which means that obviously they're having an undue influence over the voter in a direct manner. I mean, this is obviously why nobody's allowed to go with you into the polling booth or to help you fill out your ballot when you're at a polling station.
Right.
You know, that's one of the entire points of that. And really, this practice is illegal in most of the country. So much so that North Carolina right now is being investigated for electoral fraud because of illegal ballot harvesting. In North Carolina, this entire idea of ballot harvesting it's just completely illegal. You're not allowed to do it because it can at the last minute flip votes in races that you're seeing that it doesn't look good for your side. Well, let's go and collect a bunch of ballots that have not been turned in, suggest to the voters that they vote for our side, and then we can sweep in with some huge margins right there at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened with the North Carolina congressman who's being investigated right now. And that's also what happened in a lot of races in California. The interesting thing is that the process is technically legal in California.
Right, right.
Yeah, Jerry Brown signed into the election code in 2016 a small change to the law that allows for ballot harvesting to be made legal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was decried by a lot of people even at the time as like a Banana Republic amendment. And it seems like that's the case here.
Right.
Because when you're really looking at a lot of the elections that happened in California during the last major national election, what you can see with the numbers is that the early voting and the absentee voting, there were a lot of cases where you had some of the districts that were going heavily for Republican. Mm-hmm. And then at the very last second, and by last second I'm talking like days after the election was finished, and when they're counting up the ballots, all of a sudden the margins turn widely for the Democratic candidates.
Mm-hmm. But ballot harvesting is totally legal in California.
Well, it's totally legal, yeah, so we're not going to be able to prosecute any of it, but at the same time, lobbying is legal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like somebody to say how that is a good idea for, the way that we run our government.
Right. So, from what I've slightly read about ballot harvesting, at least in North Carolina, the only I guess a lot of the media is saying that the ballot harvesting in California is legitimate because there hasn't really been any sort of evidence of tampering, but there yet I'll italicize that yet. Whereas in North Carolina, there has been some evidence of tampering with the ballots when they were collected.
It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be true tampering. And what really counts as tampering? I mean, going up and telling somebody who they should vote for and giving them direct suggestions on it, is that tampering or is that just advice? In a lot of circumstances, it is considered tampering. Mm-hmm. That is actually illegal to do that, even though it sounds innocuous and perfectly fine.
Right, right.
And that's one of the major problems here that I have with this entire circumstance.
The thing what I like about this is not just absentee ballots, it's also mail-in ballots, right? Mail-in ballots and absentee ballots are the same?
I'd have to actually look that up. I'm not 100% certain about that. I believe they might be the same. It's hard to tell. I know that when I vote in Colorado, I always get my ballot in the mail, but I'm expected to fill it out and just turn it into a polling place.
Right.
So, I mean, it is my same ballot that I could go and collect at a polling place if I wanted to, but, fortunately out here, you don't have to actually go and stand in line. You can just drop it off.
Right, right.
But it's not really a mail-in ballot that I get technically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely I guess a major concern these days. Like there has been studies about electoral fraud and tampering, and I guess within the past years of the United States, and this country is no stranger to such
I would call it we're not strangers to such legal corruption.
Yeah. No, there's a ton of corruption here in the United States. I mean, not necessarily on the surface, but there is definitely some finagling of the laws, I'd say. So long as they're...
I go back to the entire concept of lobbying. That's directly on the surface. It's outright there for everybody to see. And as far as I'm concerned, that's outright corruption. I don't care what you're advocating or anything. When you got money changing hands into campaign donations, you're basically buying votes.
Mm-hmm.
And we perfectly allow that. We're, legally speaking, okay with that.
So long as it's on the books and that it can be audited.
Yeah, which basically
that's-
just tells us that, hey, this guy voted this way because he's in the pocket of this corporation. But all the donations were promoted publicly, so I guess we're fine with that. Me personally, I'm not fine with that.
I think so long as it's transparent. I think we can't really. I don't think we can really avoid lobbying at all within this country because there's always going to be interest and they always want to affect the politicians. But I think, affect the politicians, policies and policies. But I think in regards to transparency, I think so long as we understand where the money is coming from, it is kind of a form of corruption, but so long as we can see where that money is coming from, I think we can't just say that, well, we didn't know that this guy was getting money from the tobacco industry, or, oh, we didn't know that this guy was getting money from the oil industry.
Yeah, except the problem is that we don't in a lot of circumstances. The lobbying firms are several degrees of separation away from the advocacy that they're doing. I mean, you've got some of the lobbying agencies out there that are just on the face of what they are, like the NRA.
Right.
The NRA, National Rifle Association, they're not hiding who they are, what they represent. But you've got plenty of other lobbying organizations that act on behalf of companies, and in many times multiple companies. They take many different firms as clients, and then they're working with congressional representatives and senators in order to fund campaigns to advocate certain policy positions that are beneficial to their clients, aka the companies. And we don't necessarily know if it's going to be tobacco, because tobacco doesn't pay for this stuff directly. They would go through these firms. We can track it to the firm, but then there's a level of, well, now it's a private business and it's client confidentiality here. And we don't know what's going on in these closed-door meetings where these campaign donations are being made. We don't know what the discussions are about and what promises are being made.
Well, if it's as clandestine as you say, then I'm totally against that. Then I think in order for us to be very comfortable with money exchanging hands, I think so long as we can see the hands who exchanged it, then I'd be comfortable with that. I mean, we can't just simply ban any sort of transactions when it comes to politics, because I think in the end it's always going to happen. I'm that cynical about it. But so long as it's on the books, I'm fine with it. I mean, one of the reasons why people didn't vote for Hillary Clinton in the first place was because they understood that she was in cahoots with Wall Street, because she had all all these speaking engagements, and I think she had a lot of groups lobbying her on behalf of Wall Street. So long as we understand that.
Which is the thing that goes back to your point that you're making. We didn't know that. That was revealed in one of the leaks. That was revealed by investigative reporting. We did not know that. That was not on the surface. That came out.
Through WikiLeaks.
Not necessarily through WikiLeaks. That came out through investigations into her finances and somebody actually managing to get a video recording of the speeches that she was making. Otherwise, that we would know that she had engaged in speeches, but we wouldn't know the content of those, how deep her advocacy went.
But it was on the books anyway, right? Like, it was. I mean, it wasn't necessarily like being like broadcasted like on TV or something. I mean, I like the investigation. Like, so long as there is a paper trail, I think I'm okay with that. But if it sounds as if like she was trying to hide it, then yes, I don't want that kind of activity happening within this country. Everything needs to be on the surface, so that the voters have have some sort of understanding as to, if politicians are committing any sort are trying to, establish any sort of associations with industries or whatnot. I think I'm fine with that. But yeah, if it sounds as if like the politicians are hiding the fact that they're associated with Wall Street or the oil industry or whatnot, then yeah, like that's total corruption right there.
Well, then that's what it was. I've just looked this up because I couldn't remember precisely how it came about. No, the speeches were leaked in the documents that were posted by WikiLeaks during the 2016 campaign.
But the speeches were leaked. But we already knew she was engaged with Wall Street.
Well, I mean, that's really kind of the thing right there, is it? How deep does that relationship go? We can establish that there is a relationship. We might be able to know that publicly. The main reason why people got so upset about it was with the content of those speeches. How partnered up she was with these entities.
Mm.
That's what people got really upset about. And that's the stuff that was completely hidden from us. I don't think it's good enough to be able to say that we can draw a line between these two people, because what does that line actually represent? It could be completely antagonistic.
Mm.
We need to know the content of this.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's most definitely.
In the background?
Yeah, sorry, that was my phone.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. I understand that you're having a serious.
If you were trying to play something or not.
I was trying to play something, but sorry about that. But yeah, that's definitely a serious argument to make. But that's not necessarily something on the books, right? Like, those private engagements are not necessarily like written as if like they were in like a courtroom.
No, it's not in a courtroom. It's not official public testimony. But that's the problem, is that that's the stuff that would shape her policy as a public figure. Is her private dealings with people.
Right, but what incented those investigations? Like, what incented people to commit to those investigations was because
to hear it still talked about these days, it was Russia. Even though the Senate investigation is over and has found fucking nothing as regards that. So.
Plus, we have the Mueller report.
Yeah, and the Mueller report also found nothing. So I mean, we don't know. We still don't know who leaked the information to WikiLeaks.
Maybe it was Trump himself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, he would benefit from it, but I don't think he has that kind of reach.
No, he's not as powerful as I guess he claims to be. But yeah, like going back to what you were saying, it was really because those speaking engagements were on the books. Like there was a report of what there was like an audit of like where she got her money and those.
When people found that kind of stuff, she refused to disclose the information about it because she knew it was damaging to her.
Oh yeah. So yeah, like I think right now the situation is perfectly fine in that regard. I guess in the case of Clinton, where her transactions were transparent. It was only it's only argument of should we dig deep any further? Yes, of course, because she was always trying to claim she was some sort of like Elizabeth Warren 1.0. Like the earlier Elizabeth Warren, where I was always fighting for the little man, but no.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, then agree to disagree. I mean, I don't care that the relationships are just right there. I mean, to put it in the context of, programming and whatnot, I can draw an ERD of database tables and I can have a relationship, but that doesn't help me to know the content of the data between those two tables and what it actually represents. Unless I can draw up a report of the contents of those tables.
Well, to all those programmers out there, I hope you just got stimulated.
All right, fair enough. That was a weird analogy.
No, I could understand that. I think
I'm just saying, like,
what you're trying to say, you're trying to say, what's the correlation?
I'm trying to more so say that we know the relationships there, but what is the data? What do those relationships truly represent in an actual situation?
Right.
I mean, otherwise they're just lines between people on a chartboard, on a corkboard in a cop show. And they got the picture of the big drug dealer up at the top, and they've got those pins in them with the strings between different photos of other guys.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
all of those strings are all well and good, but you know what they also have in those cop shows on there? They have like Post-it notes underneath each one of the names to indicate what their relationship is to the big cheese and the actual criminal organization. That's what the contents of the speech represent to me. Otherwise, it's just pictures on a board with strings.
I see. But we all know they all lead to Kevin Spacey, so.
Well, at 8 degrees at some point, yes.
I mean, I was talking about The Usual Suspects, but...
Oh, wait, no, that was Kevin Bacon I'm thinking of.
yeah. Well,
I got my Kevins confused.
Okay, Kevin James, yeah, whatever, yeah.
Well, of course, Kevin. I mean, she was the senator of New York, and I mean, he's the king of Queens, so...
Yeah.
What's in those packages that he's delivering for UPS?
He's delivering Jerry Brown's toupee. He's Jerry Brown's toupee.
Tie it all back in.
So now we're going to move on to our quiz, and to this week's quizmaster is none other than Snowden.
All right. And I'm afraid I don't have a theme or anything to mark this out, so let's go with Bernie, are you ready for Northern California trivia? Da, 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 da. I can't do any more bars or else it's copyright infringement.
I think I just farted, just out of laughter.
Well, then I've succeeded to some degree.
Okay. Okay, yes, I'm ready. I'm ready for this quiz.
All right. These are some questions about your home territory, Northern California. And let's just dive right in. So Northern California is home to the tallest mountain in the lower 48 states. What is the name of the mountain?
Oh, is it Mount Shasta? Do you have is it multiple choice? Don't you have multiple choice?
Oh, you want multiple choice?
Yeah.
Oh.
I gave you multiple choice last week.
That's true, but that was just how it was set up. Okay, I could do multiple choice.
Okay.
But for right now, it wasn't Mount Shasta. It is actually Mount Whitney.
I didn't know that. Okay.
All right. Northern California is also home to the lowest point in the lower 48 states. Where is it? A, the San Francisco Bay, B, Death Valley, or C, not a choice.
So
you put me on the spot and I can't think of this.
Not a choice sounds very tempting. You mean like so the lowest, in terms of sea level, like yep. I'm sorry, you mean altitude?
Well, the altitude, and by that would put it below sea level.
So in Northern California specifically.
Mm-hmm. It is the lowest point in the lower 48 states.
Well, I know that San Francisco is in Northern California, but I'm not aware that Death Valley is in Northern California.
It's well north of LA.
Oh, okay. Well, if it's north of LA and we're considering anything north of LA as Northern California, then I'm going to go with Death Valley.
Yes, that would be Badwater in Death Valley, 282 feet below sea level.
Wow, that's 282 below feet. Wow, that's pretty low. Let's flood it. Let's not make it Death Valley anymore. We need to resuscitate life into that valley.
Yeah, but then we could just end up with another Salton Sea situation. I don't think anybody wants that.
I think we do, like if it's like the Dead Sea, like I'd be able to float there, just relax, read a newspaper, as life just ticks away,
Yeah. I guess
Whatever.
There's that.
Okay, yay! So I got 1 point.
All right. And also, Northern California is home to General Sherman, the largest what in the entire world? A. Mummified body of a Union general. C. Limousine. Or B. Out of order because I screwed that up. Sequoia tree.
I'll go with Sequoia tree.
Yes.
Okay, so we could do without the multiple choice, but is it okay if I ask questions?
You can certainly ask questions.
Okay.
That'll probably work better.
Okay. 2 points out of 3. So yeah, you don't have to do multiple choice. I just want to ask. At least just give me the leverage to ask questions. To whittle it down to a couple of answers.
All right. So where can you find one of the only 3 Hershey's chocolate factories in North America within Northern California?
Okay, so that's I didn't know I didn't know we had a Hershey's factory in Northern California. So I understand there is a Hershey's factory in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That'd be one of the 3.
That's one of the
That's
3.
like their flagship.
What was the one outside Pennsylvania and California?
That's a good question.
Okay, well, let's focus
Looks like it's in Las Vegas, oddly enough.
Oh, wow. So I am assuming here that Hershey's made a bad business decision by opening up a factory in Las Vegas when they already had one in Northern California, which is already on the West Coast, Western United States. So let's see here. Is it in the Central Valley? Like, if we're talking about Northern California, is like anything north of Los Angeles is considered Northern California.
Let's see here. The Central Valley consists of places like Stockton and Modesto, right?
Yes.
In that case, yes.
Okay. Is this... Okay. So it's there. Is it like Bakersfield? Is that where it's located?
Bakersfield. It is not in Bakersfield.
Mm.
It is actually in Oakdale.
I've never heard of that town before.
Oakdale, California, due almost 100% east of San Francisco.
What?
Well, I mean, it's not close to San Francisco. You got hundreds and hundreds of miles between it. But, I mean, if you drew a line from, like, the marker of San Francisco
you mean
to
Oakland?
Oakdale. No, not Oakland.
It's called Oakdale.
It's called Oakdale. Oakdale,
Never
California.
heard of it. I'm just as surprised as when I heard that there's an Albany in California, and apparently there is one right north of Berkeley. So, okay, that's interesting. Do they give tours? I'd like Hershey's.
Boy, that I don't know. You'd have to look that one up.
Okay.
I'm just Googling around for quick information that I could write down an answer to. I don't have a lot of the salient facts.
Okay. Okay, let's. Okay, I'm ready for the next question.
All right, this one. This one I got to add something to it because I realize now reading it, there's a lot of different answers that would be viable for this. It is in relation to things that you know that I've been reading and that interests I have. California has more of what than any other state in the Union?
I'm assuming it's serial killers.
That is correct. It is serial killers,
Really?
including unidentified and uncaptured serial killers, such as the Doodler, Gypsy Hill Killer, a.k.a. the San Mateo Slasher, the Santa Rosa Hitchhiker Killer, and the Valley of the Sun Shooter, and, of course, the Zodiac Killer.
Yes, the Zodiac Killer. Never caught them. But they're still lingering around, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and a lot of lists still to this day list the Golden State Killer. They haven't updated to account for the fact that we got him a couple years ago. Or just last year,
Oh,
actually.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I heard about that. Like, yeah, just recently. I think that he was identified in Hayward or like Fremont. He was an old guy.
Yeah.
Scary guy.
Turns out it's because the police do actually run scans against all of those online genealogy websites that you can send your DNA to and get a profile from. One of his grandchildren sent it in, and they managed to match it back to him, and through that grandchild, track down the grandparent.
Oh,
and
so
to all of the crimes.
So it was basically through Ancestry.com that we were able to catch the serial killer.
Not specifically Ancestry, but one of those. Yep.
That's great to hear.
So keep that in mind the next time you want to know a little bit more about your family history. You may end up learning a bit more than you intended.
That's awesome. Oh, wow. So, here's a report here. Oh, it looks like you are 50% Swedish and 50% Welsh. Oh, and by the way, you are related to a serial killer back in the Bay Area. Oh. Who is it? Oh, it looks like it's your uncle. Okay.
Ah, yes. You are acquainted with the East Side Rapist. Interesting.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's great to hear. I'll put a portrait of him in my hallway, just to stare down my children. Whenever they're whenever they get in trouble, I'll always point to that portrait and say, either he's going to get you or you're going to end up like him.
Look, kids, clearly I got it in my blood to be crazy. Don't push me.
Because I can go crazy.
Yeah, so that's one that I personally find pretty interesting.
That's pretty interesting.
Although
But not in
not
terms of
the
per capita,
highest,
right?
No, not at all per capita. That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah,
It's the
yeah.
most serial killers total by far and away than any other state in the Union. But by per capita, Alaska has everybody beat by being twice as much as the national per capita average.
Well, this is a good reason just to go to Barrows, Alaska. Just to... Did they catch the serial killers in Alaska, or are they still like fugitives? Well, not fugitives, but
It's a lot of fugitives, but there are not that many, and it's underreported up there, especially because a lot of that is a little bit speculative. You find a body who's been shot in the back in the woods. Is that a hunting accident, or is that a most dangerous game situation?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes down in Alaska.
Well, it's Alaska, so people tend to get bored there. So I assume... I assume the Iditarods is not going to be enough. That's the only major spring event that they have there. The only thing that they need to do to have fun is to, shoot some animals who are considered the most dangerous game in the world. And who is that? Human beings.
Indeed.
Exactly.
Well, as a palate cleanser, this one's a little bit more fun. Fortune cookies were created where?
I'm assuming it was created in San Francisco.
That is correct.
Yeah, yeah. I know there is a factory there. I don't think I've been there before, but I know that there is one. Or maybe I have, and I kind of slightly remember going on a field trip to a fortune cookie factory.
They do have a factory there. They were actually originally created very small time for one specific restaurant, the Japanese Tea Garden in San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
They were the ones to first start selling them. They got popular, and now it's a worldwide thing.
I think when I went on that field trip to the fortune cookie factory, I got one fortune. I cracked open the cookie and ate it, and got a message that said, "Watch out for Rem Lazar."
Well, then that's clearly a bad fortune. Nobody needs to watch out for him.
Almighty Rem Lazar. Well, I just don't want him to come in my sleep and molest me.
Well, okay, that is a concern.
Okay. Rem Lazar, I want you. You're my best friend, Rem Lazar. So for all those people who are very confused about what we're trying to talk about, it's Rem Lazar is this this film character that was featured on Red Letter Media's Best of the Worst. So
Yes, it was.
that was a really good episode. So,
Damn
but yeah, but moving on. So,
all right.
yeah.
So the next one, just south of San Francisco, is the city of Castroville, which is known as the artichoke capital of the world. In 1947, Norma Jean was crowned as the first artichoke queen. Everybody would know her better by what name?
Oh shit. Did she eventually become an actress?
Yes, she did.
So Norma Jean, and she's a. Did she star in like Legally Blonde?
No,
Sorry,
this was
sorry.
1947.
Sorry, 1947. So she was crowned probably fairly young in 1947, and probably she got she reached her peak probably in the 60s.
Late 50s, early 60s.
Late 50s, okay. Late 50s, early 60s. Oh, no, this is a good question.
I can give you a hint.
Okay.
She was well known for having lovers, and possibly one of her most famous lovers was killed in Texas.
Is it Marilyn Monroe?
It is Marilyn Monroe.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that. She's a Berea native?
Yeah. Yeah, and her real name is Norma Jean.
That sounds sexy.
Definitely a good choice of stage name that she took.
Yeah. Well, she must have had a ton of artichokes right after the artichoke festival.
Yeah. I would imagine that she would have had to. Probably part of the duties of the queen.
Exactly. She got she no wonder why JFK went after her. She knew she could artichoke.
Well, that's not a good thing.
Okay, I guess.
I mean, you're gay, but you should still know this. You don't want choking in that circumstance.
Well, yeah, I mean, but maybe there are certain. Okay. We're going into like the abyss with this conversation.
Oh, so probably just move on.
I mean, I was going to say that most likely because she was the artichoke queen, there are certain kinds of men who love the idea of a woman artichoking. So
there you go. We picked this back up.
So her gag reflexes were very good.
Fair enough.
Okay, what? Okay, so moving on. Was that the last question, or do we have another question?
I got one more question. This one is actually pretty interesting, in my opinion.
Okay.
Like, genuinely interesting.
Okay.
Okay, Highway 99 in the San Joaquin Valley is home to a pine tree and a palm tree planted right next to each other. What is the significance of these trees?
Well, that's an interesting one. So a pine tree and a palm tree next to each other. In the San Joaquin Valley.
Right
How?
next to Highway 99.
I don't know where Highway 99 is.
Well,
Highway
it
9.
cuts through the San Joaquin Valley.
So, so was it because they were? Okay, I just want some clues here. So was it because they were like, were they planted like 150 years ago, or
Well,
century?
that's the thing is I can't really answer that.
Okay, I see.
Not because it gives things away, but I'll explain it.
Okay. Oh, okay. Wait. Okay. I just wanna guess here. So, is it because is it some sort of like it's not a man-made thing? Is it like a geological
Well, I mean they're trees,
phenomenon?
but they would have been planted by somebody.
Oh, okay.
I mean, especially a palm tree. Palm trees aren't native.
Well,
You know?
I was going to say, is it because of the this is not my answer, but given what you said, I'm going to say something else. But I was going to say, is it because of like an earthquake fault line that that brought two plates together of two different terrains and climates?
No,
and they were
no,
okay, but they
wouldn't be
they
that
were
old.
Okay, so they were planted by someone. So were they planted in the 20th century or in the 19th century?
Probably the 20th.
Okay, in the 20th century. So probably in the 20th century.
Just kind of think about it. A pine tree and a palm tree. Right next to each other.
Is it of political significance?
No.
No. A pine tree and a palm tree. Is it some sort of like genetic experimentation?
No, nothing like that. Not for like not a crossbreeding thing.
Pine tree, palm tree. It was planted by someone very special.
No. I mean,
No.
that again, we don't know.
Oh, we don't know.
It's just the trees and where they are.
Palm tree. Is it?
Think about this in terms of latitudes.
Is it okay? Is it? They were planted there because that's pretty much the only place where both a pine tree and a palm tree can coexist.
No. You want me to just go ahead and...
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know.
Okay. They mark the midline between northern and southern California.
Oh,
Geographically, based off of, if you're looking at the latitudes of the northern border with Oregon and the southern border with Mexico,
yeah.
The trees are almost exactly in the middle. They're off by just a couple of degrees, or about 25 miles.
Oh, okay.
Now, the interesting thing is that this was entirely unplanned. Nobody actually knows who planted the trees or when, and why they would have planted them so close together like that.
Mm.
People have heard stories that it was one of the local ranchers who intended it for being for having that significance of being like a demarcation between Northern California and Southern California.
Oh, okay.
But at this point, they're now preserved and maintained by Caltrans since they are right there next to Highway 99, and they're an unofficial landmark.
Interesting. Wow. I should stop by. I've never heard this before. So that's pretty interesting. I didn't know there was an official demarcation between North California.
There isn't an official demarcation. It's just the middle point in terms of the map.
Right.
You know?
But this is basically the closest to what we have.
It
but
would be
as
it would
of an
be the
official
closest
line.
thing. It really is looked at as like an unofficial landmark for the border of Northern California and Southern California, if there were such a thing.
Oh, that's interesting. Cool. So yeah, do I get to win a prize? What did I do well?
Well, hell, I don't know. You want a prize? I didn't think this far ahead either.
Do I get a piece of Arnold Schwarzenegger's pubic hair after he got caught having sex with his maid?
You know what? If that's what you want, you can
No, that's
feel
not what
free
I
to
want.
help
Of course
yourself.
not. I do not want any sort of hair from any former California governor. Let's make that clear. Whether if it's Jerry Brown's toupee or Arnold Schwarzenegger's pubic hair.
Fair enough.
Okay.
That probably works out because I don't have any that I'd be able to give you, I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah, that was a good quiz. That was great.
Yeah.
That was
Some
pretty
basic
interesting
stuff.
Fun stuff about California. Yeah.
If we do that again, I think I'll probably try to focus on those more interesting things like serial killers and trees.
Trees. Or trees that have become serial killers. Or serial killers of trees.
Now that would be fascinating. Or we could just rehash discussions about PG&E again in regards to wildfires.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Talk about tree serial killers.
Okay. Well, let's, I guess, move on to our last topic, which is basically that Bernie Sanders has announced his presidential run for 2020. I understand that, having just, talked to you for a very long time, and especially during a 2016 election, you were a big Bernie fan back then, and had he run as a Democrat back then, you probably would have voted for him over Trump. Is that true?
I don't know. Looking back, that's hard to say. I can't say that I was a big Bernie fan. I really didn't like any of his policies. Although, at the time, I certainly felt like he was less insane than Trump, to an extent. The biggest thing for me was that I just wanted an outsider. I wanted a protest candidate. And if it came down to Bernie or Trump, I would not have really cared who won because ultimately I would have already gotten what I wanted. Both parties got blown out, and the outsider was the one who was on the ballot.
I guess in terms of temperament, Trump is most likely the crazy guy, right? He's the insane guy. He tweets a lot and stuff. But in terms of policy, his policies are actually far more rational than Bernie's are.
Oh, by far and away. That's the interesting thing is now that it's been put into practice. My assessment of him is that he's actually pretty level-headed and is implementing things fairly well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Trump, he may sound like a blowhard.
No, he doesn't sound like a blowhard. He is a blowhard.
Well, he is a blowhard.
And I like the guy, but I'm not going to stand here and pretend for 1 second that he isn't a lunatic in terms of how he presents himself.
Everyone, I have big hands. I don't want anyone to doubt that.
They're the biggest
hands are not small.
They're huge.
They're huge. They're huge. They're magnificent. They're beautiful. They're beautiful hands. I just love them. Sometimes I make love to my hands.
Believe me, my hands are so strong because of all the workout they get with all of the tweets that I send.
Absolutely. I take care of my hands, just like I take care of my daughter Ivanka, who's absolutely beautiful. Okay.
I'm suddenly realizing that both of us are bad at this. I think that sounded more like our Jerry Brown more than anything else.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not a very good Trump impersonator. I haven't lived or studied Trump enough in order for me to impersonate him very well. I do a better Jerry Brown impersonation than anything.
But come to think of it, everybody does a Trump like that with kind of like a down, almost Down syndrome-y kind of cadence to him when he doesn't sound like that at all. But that's how everybody does like their impression.
He does this, right?
So he does some sniffling now and then. Yeah.
It's beautiful
is absolutely beautiful. I think these hands will absolutely, these hands, like like Trump he's not as insane as I thought. Knock on wood, he hasn't placed us in some sort of war, right? He's not like Bush, and he's not been like Obama. He's not as assertive militarily, but he understands the idea of deterrence more so than I think Obama did.
Yeah, kind of seems to be that way.
So he understands the full power and might of the United States, but he uses that idea of of America being a superpower and says, well, we have all the nuclear weapons and we have the greatest military in the world. If you try to fuck us in any way, I'm going to make sure that my military is going to invade your ass. That's basically what he says.
In many ways, he's living up to the Teddy Roosevelt legacy. Speak softly, carry a big stick.
Right.
Now, he certainly carries the big stick because it's the United States. He doesn't speak softly, but I think the basic idea there is how he manages a lot of his foreign diplomacy.
He's speak loudly and carry a big stick, I guess. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think what he's currently using is the sort of Nixon madman foreign policy, where he
definitely.
where he tries to portray himself as some sort of crazy man. Like, watch out, I could press this button anytime. But he's using it as some sort of leverage to get negotiations. I mean, one of the reasons why Kim Jong-un has come to the table was mainly because Trump was basically saying, well, I'm going to rain hellfire on your country if you do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Everybody believed that Trump was capable of doing that.
Absolutely. I think we want our enemies to believe that Trump is capable of doing that. We want that.
Yeah. Well, not just our enemies, our allies too. I mean, it's worked well with, getting better deals with a lot of people.
Right.
Getting a lot more money coming into us.
And I like the fact that I think Trump understands that there's definitely going to be a certain portion of the American population who wants to divorce themselves from any sort of way from Trump, right? Like, he's a crazy guy. We don't really believe what he says, but he's president right now. So yeah, we understand he's crazy. And so the allies are kind of looking at relations with the U.S. as some sort of like, okay, this is a crazy guy. We understand that Americans actually don't want this guy at times, but we have to deal with him.
Yeah, he's the face of the country at the moment.
He's the head of state.
So I guess trying to tie this back into the original topic here,
Right.
With all of this, how do you think that Bernie presently would stack up against Trump in an election?
I think at the moment, there's definitely going to. Well, the thing is that if Bernie is running, we have to say that this is going to eventually become a three-way race, right?
Because he's running as an independent. Right?
He's right, exactly. So he's not running on the Democratic ticket, and so we can safely assume right now that someone like Kamala Harris or maybe even Beto O'Rourke or who else was on the ticket, Cory Booker, could potentially be the Democratic candidate, and they'll have to face off against Trump and Bernie eventually.
Well, it's also going to be fascinating if the Starbucks guy, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head right now, goes in. That would be like a four-way race.
Oh yeah, that'd be quite interesting. But I think if that were to happen, I think Trump has this down. I think he's going to win again. I mean, if Bernie is basically splitting up the votes, and that what's his name, the Starbucks CEO guy is running as well, like they're basically splitting off the votes from the Democrats. So they're taking some of the votes from that party.
They're effectively being the Ross Perot's for the Democrats.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's going to happen is that Trump just needs to brush by with, a couple of maybe 45% of the popular vote, or 48%, and eventually win again with at least 250 electoral votes. So I think in the case of Bernie specifically, I guess solely if you're asking me like what do I think of Bernie's policies, I think they're too crazy for me. I think I've said to you before, had Bernie had run as a Democrat, I think I would have voted for Trump because I was too afraid of what damage Bernie could have done in terms of his own policies. But now I think a lot of people are catching on. At least the left their rhetoric is catching on, mainly because